I saw some horrific things. Kids being blown overboard, being sucked into intakes of jets.
Today we're joined by Coach McFarland, a Navy veteran, to talk about his financial journey, his trials and tribulations along the way, and how he was able to use veteran debt assistance to navigate it all.
What can I do to succeed is...
When you were in the highest amount of debt, do you have a dollar amount for that?
100,000, maybe even a little more. I accept where I am in this moment. God got me here, He'll take me where He wants to go.
From St. Louis originally.
Uh-huh.
Born, raised, still a resident of the St. Louis area.
That's correct.
So tell me about life as a kid in St. Louis.
I was a kid, I was born in '45, and so my life consisted of the things politically, societally that were going on in the 50s and 60s, and so, but I had a dad and a mom who worked real hard, and he emphasized education. You get a good education and you can do whatever, be whatever you want to be. And my question as a kid, before any of this occurred in politics, even be president. And he'd say with all the confidence, yeah, even be president. That got blown over when Barack Obama got elected. I mean, it just made every lesson that I learned from him even more important. But yeah, it was a good time. He kept us ahead of the fray. You know, there's always going to be activities that you want to keep your kids out of. And he was a big believer in organization. People doing things together on behalf of whatever the demographic you were serving. And so a lot of the places where we did crafts and arts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I'd say it was fairly, I don't like to think in terms of class, but more on the backside of middle class, I guess would be where we were. But we worked hard, and we like I said, we made provisions for ourselves. So
now, as you were growing up, serving in the military, had that been brought up? You had mentioned that you have uncles who had served.
Yeah. Well, my whole thing was for respect. I mean, I believed my dad was the first African American black bus driver in the city of St. Louis, and you would think somebody who's taking people to work would get respected, and boy, he went through some horrific kinds of incidents, and so my whole pursuit in part was to get the respect that I thought I had earned. And so to your question about the military, I had two uncles that looked so super in their uniforms, the Army guys, and both of them vocally encouraged serving the country. So I thought this would be a place to possibly get that respect. And the result is a different story. I'm sure we'll share, but it's all good.
Yeah. So, and I haven't had the dynamic of, you know, making the choice within that Army versus something like, let's say, Navy.
Okay.
Was that a point of contention at any?
Very good. Good question. Yes, it was. There was a point of contention between which branch of the service. The grunts, they call them, you'd find them boots on the ground. That was your Army. Everybody's welcome. And then the Marine Corps was another, because again, these were your fighting forces. Navy and Air Force were reserved for the white population, and so it was a bad thing to go into those branches. I didn't know it, except one of the things that really helped me gravitate. From a kid, I always wanted to fly, and I wanted to fly jets. I'd been promised a scholarship, 2-year school, if I joined the Navy. Didn't happen, but again, that's another whole story in the history of my military.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my uncles essentially were my motivation and the promise of possibly being able to fulfill my dream. So
now we'll talk about it a little bit later. You have fulfilled from an actual pilot's license perspective.
Yes, sir.
Even though it happened maybe couple years later.
Quite a few years later,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I have.
So when you, and we can get into the brass tacks of what was the year that you enlisted?
Enlisted in 1963.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you departed.
In 66, late 66.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you went from high school to enlistment, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, so you're coming out of your service at what age?
21, 22.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so transitioning back to civilian life, what was that like for you?
Well, it was horrible for every veteran at that point in time. You have to know the politics in the country at the time. If you remember, the country was screaming to shut down the Vietnam War. All of the things that were going on politically, we came back to being booed coming through the airport. To, I guess, magnify my issue, being a black man,
Sure.
It was even worse. And so I kind of put my head down and find a place where I could, avoid the reaction that we were getting. So, but I had no real skills. I was aboard the Enterprise, USS Enterprise, which is an aircraft carrier. And I had some good duties. I was a flight deck director for a while. But then again, there were some problems, issues, promises that I won't go into.
Sure.
But they impacted me in terms of just, again, treatment. My expectation when I'm going into the service was I'd be treated as a part of a family, patriots, and it didn't happen. I realized early in my enlistment that I had to keep my head up. I was on alert for emotional, physical, psychological survival, and so that was kind of my experience, through the course. But coming back, just kind of trying to find my way.
So you've had approximately 60 years of seeing other individuals, other people go from service to earning veteran status. That transition is famously a very difficult one.
Right.
Have you had conversations with other veterans about their transitions, how to not necessarily help them, but how to understand making that transition back to civilian life?
Part of the reason that I do what I do with the veteran organization, we started a foundation, wife and I, called Honor to Our Heroes Foundation. And to the point, I coined the phrase transitional trauma. A trauma is something that impacts you negatively or in some cases positively. But in the case with most veterans, it's kind of like being put on a bus, dropped off in a city that you've never been to without a map or a guide to say, okay, see ya, without resources, et cetera, et cetera. And so most of the veterans that don't have support systems, family or network, you get lost out there. And when you realize that there's something that you have to do that, again, my opinion, should have been done prior to your being discharged, and that is trained into some type of resourceful, meaningful way of supporting yourself, you're in a downward spiral. And of course, somebody's been telling you every day what to do, when to do it, and that kind of thing, and all of a sudden you got to make your own plans. It's pretty difficult. And many, there are 50,000 approximately veterans that have served honorably out there that are living on the streets and communities across America, and it's a travesty. I had a different background. I had a different confidence about myself, and I had the good fortune of meeting my wife, who supported me through quite a bit. I've had emotional depressions, ups and downs,
Sure.
and things like that, but we work it out and we make it happen.
Your better half?
Oh, yes. I say that without hesitation.
Better 60%, better 70%, somewhere in between?
Better half, period. Yeah, no, she's my best friend. So much so I call her Princess because that's the way I'd like everybody to treat their
Yeah.
better half. So,
And you said modest earlier when we were talking.
yeah.
I think one of the things that's so fascinating to me in talking to you is you are putting others first.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
ask you a question about you, and the first thing that you tell me is about the successes and the triumphs of other people.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have always, in your mind, kind of framed putting others first, or?
That's my growing up, putting others first. My mom, devout, well, my whole family, devout Christian, and our responsibility in Christ is to serve others. And so I like to think I'm an advocate for humanity, and I go where the need I feel is greatest. Children, seniors, and now with this thing with veterans, I mean, they deserve better. And I find that God's given me something that's going to give me the opportunity to serve a lot of them. The program we're working on, we don't go into detail at this point, but we believe it will make a substantial impact on housing, providing adequate housing for veterans.
Yeah, what else don't we know? I think that's one of the things as a civilian who has never served. I have family members who have served, but that's the extent of it. We talk about the challenges and tribulations getting back to civilian life. I really think it's important that we're to use deserve, what veterans deserve. Homelessness, obviously a very important issue. What else don't we know about veterans in that transition?
The veterans' problems are magnified in terms of his or her experiences. We talked about Army versus Navy. Well, even aboard ship, I saw some horrific things. Kids being blown overboard, being sucked into intakes of jets,
Yeah.
and so those things they don't get away
Yeah.
from you. When you see, and we see the evidence of the EIDs, the landmines that are taking body parts, and those are things that you just need help understanding. On a ride over here this morning, we were talking about the need for the story to be told, to let veterans know that there are other people who are suffering through the same kinds of problems that they are. But more importantly for me, there are systems of help, systems that we are providing here in this setting that will possibly help. If we can help one, we're doing a good job. Everybody helps one. And so that's something that we want to make an imprint. We want to make that a focal point of what we're doing in terms of these programs.
I want to get into more about you.
Okay.
And
I'll let you.
in this circumstance,
Okay.
I want, if you can, to not put somebody first in the answer.
No, I will.
I know you will. I don't know why I'm asking you ahead of time. I know what the outcome is already.
Okay.
Okay. So, I have these conversation cards.
Okay.
And with these conversation cards, I'm going to shuffle them so
Okay.
people don't think this is rigged in any way.
Okay.
And what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you some questions.
Okay.
And as best you can, I'd love to hear an answer from you.
Okay.
Okay. If you could go back in time and change one specific moment in your life, what would it be and why?
Wow, great question. I think develop an understanding that it's our expectations that disappoint us. And so my perspective would be a little bit different if I could change that, if I could go back in time and change that. And there's a lot of things, mistakes that that I've made that just trying to think. May sound simple, but when I boarded the aircraft carrier Enterprise in Norfolk, I got dropped off by a cab on the dock, and I walked the dock for an hour And before, my pride allowed me to ask somebody where the boat was. And he looked at me and says, "What are you, a dummy? You're standing beside it." The Enterprise, 6 stories tall, 5,000 people, so maybe less prideful. And my wife's helped me a lot with that. We, a little more humble in the way I've approached things. For the most part, I've done fairly well, but she might have something different to say about that.
Well, I think she's done a pretty good job of shaping you.
And shaping me, she has.
That's right. This is a question, James Bay. When it all gets too dark, what helps you find the light?
Oh, wow, that's an easy one.
I know the answer to this one, but I want to hear from you.
Yeah, no, I pray. That's my first response. And having a good partner like I do, I mean, we pray together. I get a lot of comfort and solidity in, our relationship.
I knew that answer.
I knew you did.
If there was one singular idea that had the most profound impact on your life, what would it be?
I guess my decision to ask my wife for her hand in marriage. Business ideas, I've had a lot. Some I thought were very good, some that were stolen from people that I sought funding from. But I kind of move from one place to another when I see the door not opening. My philosophy is that when one door closes, there's another.
Sure.
So I'd have to wrap up there.
Your decision to coach, to become a coach, to become coach to a lot of people.
Okay.
What was the background on that?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. My dad and mom got married at a young age. This may differ a little from what you're thinking. My dad was 16 when he and my mom came out of Arkansas, just kids. They married till until he died at age 59. But I was good at athletics. I could play. I was a good ball player. I was fast. But my dad worked 2 jobs, and he never got an opportunity to see me, to promote me. Then I made a promise at an early age that when I had kids, I would always be at their events. I would coach them if necessary, and it just kind of expanded from there.
I always tell the families, the parents, whoever the guardian is of the kids, I say the reason that I coach is not to make them professional athletes. It's not to send them down that path.
Yeah.
By the numbers, very unlikely.
Yep.
It's to give them, not knowing anything about them, but to just give them an adult who believes in them.
There you go.
You ready for another question?
Yeah.
What is the most frequent piece of advice that people ask you for?
It's a general question, but I'm asked from time to time, what can I do to succeed? And my response to what can I do to succeed is, first you have to define your success, what success means to you, what it looks like. It's going to require your understanding of yourself, what you're wanting to do, and that way you put together a roadmap of how to get there. So, yeah, that question comes up a lot. What can I do to succeed in life?
How much do you accept yourself? Your flaws, your shortcomings? Is it, maybe accept is the wrong word. Is it just an appreciation of your imperfections?
I accept where I am at increments. Where I am in this moment, I'm in full acceptance. I mean, I'm doing not because I constructed where we are, but I was asked to participate, and I think it has a purpose. I think it's a very good purpose based on what you're doing, what the crew around us is doing, and so it's. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
One of the things that we talked about earlier was different business ventures, different things that you have tried throughout the years. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, if you could paint the picture for me, when you were in the highest amount of debt, do you have a dollar amount for that?
Probably 100,000 or maybe even a little more.
One of the things that's interesting when we first started talking about what sort of led you to that debt, we don't need a list A to B to C, but can you just give me a ballpark of how you ended up in that debt range?
Well, the initial efforts were to just get a job. I mean, I was reeling pretty much. Again, I'm dealing with political and social problems in the country. So I pursued jobs. And case in point, I walked into an office, cold call to get a job that had been advertised in the newspaper, and they told me that nothing was available. That I had a newspaper. Well, in my wisdom, next morning I got on the telephone and applied for the same job, and I used my correct voice, and of course they didn't know who I was, and
Yeah.
I got the job. And so when I went back to the office I mean, everybody was stumped, but that was kind of much a pattern with what was going on with jobs. And so I couldn't find a decent job with benefits. And it occurred to me I needed to do something different. And that's when I went back to school and, got a degree in political science and just kind of started to forge my own path toward economic independence. But that was pretty much my experience.
What's interesting to me is you've talked about the different jobs. You have this transition back to civilian life. You pursue a degree. There's never a downtime, right, in terms of you trying to make that stability. The thing that I find really interesting is that you have, in my estimation, tried different approaches in terms of
Absolutely.
gaining that ground again or being in a situation where you can start making that progress. Mm-hmm. What are all the different steps or strategies along the way?
Again, first defining what you want to do. I mean, it's more than about making money. And at some point in time, you realize the things that we pursue are really not as important as we benefit or think they're going to benefit us. And so just defining, somebody said, if you enjoy what you're doing, it's not a job. And so I was always in pursuit of something that filled that category, but also my motivation has always been, again, going back to helping somebody else. And there's always something that you can do that somebody else can also benefit from.
Can you walk me through some of the conversations and thought process before finding veteran debt assistance?
When I was asked the question, have you applied for your service disability? That was my initial effort when I realized that was growing. And I went through 7 years of futility and frustration. I just quit. I mean, I says, nobody's going to help me with this, particularly in view of the experience that I'd had in service. And so, and all of us get these emails and things that propose to help you. Many of them are ways to trick you out of what you've got. And so I was very skeptical about that. I thought, I can do this better on my own. So the debt assistance, I knew they were out there, and I applied for a couple of them just to see what they were all about.
Yeah.
And many of them wanted to ask you for money initially in order to help you. And then when they started asking for your checkbooks, bank account numbers, and things like that, if you're not suspicious, you should be. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Was there, in some of the initial conversations with veteran debt assistance, were you thinking, this seems like something that could be a good fit? Was there an initial conversation that you had with someone that you thought, okay, this seems like it could be a good fit for me?
The idea of help specifically for a program designed for veterans, I didn't see too many like that, but I thought this could be something that could possibly be very useful, done right. And so my assistance came, though, from a law firm that focused specifically on debt relief.
Sure.
And so, but you know, while I'm always watching, my whole energy is about what can I do. And into the program that we'll talk a little bit about, I hope we're going to generate funds that will help veterans with debt and housing and other parts of their needs.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the programs that you're working on?
We've got approximately 50,000 veteran men and women sleeping on the streets in communities across America. There was a program in 2014 that resulted in 29,499 veterans being transitioned into adequate housing.
Yeah.
It was not refunded in 2016, so that's what we're doing. We're taking that program, it's called 25 Cities Initiative. We've dubbed it 25 Plus Cities Initiative to include every city where there's a homeless veteran. We vet organizations, the need, and everybody, boots on the ground I call them, that's doing something out there is for working capital. So we're engaged in the distribution of products. We've got a brand of water called H2OH. We've got a brand of coffee called Hot Coffee. Honor our troops for the coffee. Honor to our heroes, H2O, water. It'll be in the market here within the next 3 months. We just got a verbal agreement with Chuck Norris people to bottle water for us. So we're getting the buy-in to provide funds. And what I would like to do is be able to, as you're asking, to direct people to organizations that can help them with this debt. It's an issue with America, and more so with veterans who've not landed in a good spot out here.
There was some moment where you came across an opportunity for something like veteran debt assistance, and for one reason or another, you decided to click into it, you decided to look into it. There was skepticism, and rightfully so.
Right.
And as you're thinking back on sort of that before and after moment, can you take me through how you have, if at all, changed the way that you're thinking about your financial situation, or is it pretty much the same?
It's pretty much the same, to be very honest with you. I'm a lot more conscious of it. Again, putting an individual in a house is not the end of the need. There are all kinds of needs, one of them being finance, helping them get out of debt. And so it is something that I would like to incorporate in our offer, our ability to help a veteran get out of or avoid debt.
You're talking very specifically about the holistic person, right?
Yes.
It's not putting out one fire and we're done.
Right.
Right. It's how do we try our best to satisfy the different pieces of that process.
Absolutely.
So what if at all is that conversation like with veterans as you've had it as they're transitioning back?
It depends on the degree of need that they have. I mean, a guy that's living with a super cart with all of his belonging has a little less consciousness or need for debt. I mean, that's not his thought process. A man who's gotten a house, a place to live, trying to keep the electric on, trying to keep food on the table, he's probably incurred a lot of debt, or at least debt that needs to be addressed. And so each individual circumstance, they're different.
Yeah.
And so when they come to us, we identify them, we find out what's available through veteran administration, but it's a holistic approach that we're trying to take, and we need companies. We need companies that are going to help with that area of debt because it's huge. It's a huge problem. We talk about veteran problems, and we don't specify debt. It's not a go-to talking point. We talk about things that are more visible. You know, the roof over your head, your emotional and physical, medical needs are a big part of that. There's a company you may have heard about. It's called the Veteran Community Project, vcp.org, vcp.org. They build these small homes, 400 to 700 square feet in space. They are so adaptable to good life. They're just smaller.
Sure.
They're building them in cities across the country. We support this organization. And so the point I want to make here, though, is not only do they provide these spaces for them to live, they are also have support centers. They've got certain requirements. You've got to seek a job. You've got to go through whatever treatment programs that you need. And so, again, it's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
To add to those needs, we would love to be able to say, well, here's a company that can help with debt.
Sure.
And once an individual feels like he's got as much support as he needs, then he's going to do more to help facilitate coming out of whatever that circumstance is.
It's interesting the way that you frame this idea of some needs are very visible.
Right.
And debt, for one reason or another, number one, it's obviously taboo to talk about.
Right,
and then the second part of that is also, it's not visible. It's not something that people generally know that somebody might be struggling with it.
Right.
So walk me through, how do we unpack that? How do we kind of navigate those conversations?
Well, we don't try to do it individually. We associate ourselves with organizations. I call them, again, boots on the ground. There are thousands, tens of thousands of organizations who are willing to help the underserved.
Yeah.
Their biggest requirement in every business is working capital. And so when those needs can be satisfied, we let the organizations do the work. We provide them with references, resources. If you've got an offer that's going to help with debt mitigation, this is a company we've vetted. We know their goal to be a true pursuit, and it becomes a part, again, of a whole offering.
Would you recommend veteran debt assistance?
Oh, absolutely. I've been working with veteran debt assistance here for not too very long, but we did some really we did a lot of vetting, and I find this company to be one that I would recommend, and make it a part of what we offer in terms of resolving debt problems for our veterans. It's a very important component, and one we've come to realize that not enough people talk about.
Yeah.
But veteran debt assistance is the key, in my opinion, to what's going to help you get back your feet in your economic issues.
You almost use the word interrogate, which I think is the right word to use.
Well, it is. We got to dig deep because there's a lot going on out here.
Yeah.
And again, my wife has raised my consciousness to that. You know, she's a conspiracy theorist, and let's find out, who are they? What'd they do? Well, veteran debt assistance is one that we found to be highly reputable, and again, one that we would recommend highly. This
is the first, I won't describe it as negative, we'll describe it as neutral description.
Okay.
Conspiracy theorist. That's going to be the whole plane ride home, the whole conversation. You said I was what? Conspiracy theorist?
She'll agree with me, though. She digs pretty deep when it comes to finding out what's up.
I think that's one of the important things, that people are in these circumstances. It's not like people have a financial background or a financial degree.
Absolutely.
How are they supposed to navigate finding the right partner for them in those moments.
Absolutely.
And so for you, one of the things that I appreciate the most is that you have done that due diligence, you have done the digging.
Yes, sir.
And at the end of that journey, even though it hasn't been for that long for you, you're still coming out with that same thought, reputable, this is something that we can go to and trust.
Yeah, and that comes again from my background. I've been burned on more than one occasion, as have many people who are in debt. I mean, we've got some folk out here that are doing some terrible things.
Yeah.
The subject of a lot of these schemes are seniors and people in dire need, and our veterans fall into that demographic. So, yeah, no, this is a great experience for us.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate you believing in it and coming here and spending. You didn't have to come here. You chose to come here, which I think is something that I will say on behalf of everybody that it's something that we genuinely do appreciate. Thank you for coming out, making the time. All of us here really appreciate it, so thank you.
Thank you guys for inviting us, and the service that you offer is a much needed offer. VeteranDebtAssistance.org is where you want to go and find this awesome service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, make sure to leave them below in the comment section. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to click on the thing that just popped up.